up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast presented by the Fantasy Holics, coming at you live on the Fantasy Holics X, YouTube, and Facebook pages. As the name say, I'm Fatboy Bo. That is Fatboy Brant. 7 sleeps, Brant. That's all that separates us, and some big NFL landscape changes. 7 sleeps. Should see the Raiders drafting a signal caller for the future. Lots of high-profile wide receivers, a potential huge name, and a running back potentially coming off the board in just over 7 full days, 8 days total. But I'm excited. I'm not as intrigued as I would be, obviously, if my Falcons had a first-round pick. Super Bowl championship, so your team picks at the very last thing, which is just another reminder for you that your team won the Super Bowl this year. So that should be a pretty fun thing for you, however uneventful in the fact that you probably won't get to see them draft until super late unless they trade out of it. But we're 8 days out, Brent.
Yeah, we're 8 days out. Like you said, we're at the end of the draft, which history is we normally trade out like there, and John's going to want more picks. So it'll be a little less exciting for me. It's still going to be exciting to see where some of these playmakers go as our rookie drafts. I think we have one just a couple days after the NFL draft concludes. We have a rookie draft in one of our Fantasy Holics leagues. So it's always fun day. It's really when it starts to ramp back up for the offseason, because you get the rookies and they come in to meet their teams. Then you start get rookie workouts, and you start getting more and more rumors and bites and everything else for you to start looking at going, oh, this guy's going to be involved in the offense. And then, he shows up and he doesn't even see the ball for the first 4 games.
That's fair. But also, speaking of rumors, there are some big names out in the NFL world that are being talked about as potential draft day trades. A.J. Brown, Devon Achane as of late. There was some rumblings at one point about Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. I don't know if we get anything that crazy, but you and I always do like to talk about the over-under on total bets of the NFL draft. So that will be something we're discussing next week as well. But that's something I'm looking forward to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you alluded to, this is a deep wide receiver classes you brought up with A.J. Brown being on the move. You could see some receivers being moved at day one with how young these receivers are and how deep this class is with some of these guys. And I do believe A.J. Brown is one of the biggest names that will be moved day one. And like you alluded to, join us next week on Thursday, and we'll discuss it with you guys. We'll discuss trades, picks, guys that make differences as we are live for the NFL draft throughout the entirety of it.
I do want to add that maybe the Tennessee Titans may serve as a cautionary tale to the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe you don't want to trade A.J. Brown on draft day because the guy you pick becomes way worse than A.J. does. Shout out your boy Treylon Burks there.
Caught a touchdown at the end of the year that I can go ahead and brag about just for a little bit.
It was a great catch as well. Great catch.
Yeah. Great catch. Every once in a while, you get to throw his name out there, and I get to remind everybody how stupid I was with that
one. But you weren't as stupid to trade A.J. Brown away straight up for him. So you just drafted where you were. You just happened to fall in love with a player that didn't pan out, which is what's going to happen to a lot of folks a little over a week from today. Obviously, if you've been following along with us as the Fatboyz are part of the Fantasy Holics, you've known that we've gone position by position the last couple of weeks, quarterbacks, running backs, which brings us today to the wide receiver position, Brant. So we're going to talk about some wide receiver guys, and again, not necessarily ranking them because there is a lot of, tangibles that these guys have that are very similar, a lot of differences, but again, a lot of landing spots are going to make a huge difference. There's no point in ranking these guys now when it's going to change drastically a little over a week from today. But we're gonna talk about some of these guys, some things we do and don't like, some pro comps for them, and some college stats, just to kind of paint a picture of who they could be, in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about some strength, weaknesses, everything else. I'll go ahead. You let me pick the first running back last week, so I'll go ahead and let you pick that first wide receiver this week.
Let's just start with the young man out of the University of Alabama, Germie Bernard. I did mainly take this one because I was nervous about you pronouncing his first name, but I digress. 6'1", 204 pounds, 22 years of age. Brant, what do you have about Germie Bernard?
He's a great route runner. As we've seen from Alabama, they produce some good receivers. He's a phenomenal route runner. He is very reliable on third down. He's got great hands. They looked for him as they needed to move the chains. He only had 4 drops over 232 career targets. And he's got great deep ball tracker. He's great at tracking that deep ball. And one of the things was he's got good sideline body control. He gets the two feet down. He wasn't in that college, I'm only got to get one. He liked to get 2 feet down on the sideline. So he's already starting to get that there. Some of his weaknesses, below average long speed. He's not going to burn any corners deep. He's not going to win on the 9 routes. He definitely should probably win a few more 50-50 balls as he doesn't completely high point it there in contested catches. Press coverage, he's got to work on that as physical corners will push him off his routes and don't let him create a whole lot of separation.
Yeah, which kind of brings us to his body of work in college. You'd like to see a little bit more than this. 155 receptions across 3 years, 2,203 yards receiving, averaged 14.2 yards per catch, only 13 collegiate touchdowns. Not really super, but again, quarterback play has not been that great at Alabama forever. I know Ty Simpson's getting some hype here, but not the greatest. Mr. Bernard did run a 4.48 40 official time at the combine. Again, not blow your doors away speed. 20 years ago in the NFL, that guy would have been among the top 10 fastest players in the NFL. Nowadays, it's just an average guy. That's your offensive lineman speed almost, it feels like sometimes. But, I think when it came to picking a comp for Mr. Bernard, there was a couple names that I liked a lot of with him, but you broke it down in such a way with route running and not having long speed. And he feels like a perfect Chris Godwin to me, Brant, like a guy who wins with his routes more than his speed, wins with his IQ more than his physicality. Just a guy that gets in and out of his breaks quick and can make players miss. Again, not going to have 70-yard touchdowns, but plenty of 20 and 30-yard touchdowns to go along with it.
Absolutely. I'll go with number 9. I guess we didn't rank him. We just had 10 names on here, and that's Elijah Sarratt out of the University of Indiana. Great body control on the sideline there. His intermediate routes is where he earned his paycheck. Those were the best routes, going right over the middle, 10, 15 yards deep. That's where he is the best. He's a great blocker. He has no problem getting out there and blocking and helping the running backs move on with the screens and everything else. He has a nose for the touchdowns. He had 44 career touchdowns receptions. I don't know if he added any. It said, when I was looking at it, it said career touchdown receptions. He may have added a couple on the ground. I don't know. Some of his weaknesses, once again, he's not going to burn you. He's not going to run past the corners. He's not going to score on a 70, 80-yard touchdown. He's not going to burn you. His release package is going to have to get some work. He struggles to get release and separation at the line against press. He's going to have to get, a little more shifty at the line to get loose. And he needs to expand his route tree. He had a lot of work behind the line of scrimmage and creating his own. So he's going to have to expand that route tree.
Yeah, again, you really talked me into liking this comp as well, Brant. I fell in love with all my running back comps last week before the show. This week I wasn't as in love with them, but you're really selling me. Again, 6'2", 209 pounds, 22 years old, 4.53. So again, not gonna be that guy that busts anybody open with his speed, and that's okay. We don't really need him to. 242 receptions in his collegiate career, 3,678 yards receiving, average 15.2 yards per catch. Again, to go along with those 44 receiving touchdowns that you brought up, Brant. Honestly, the first comp that I really liked when it came to him wasn't sexy enough, so I had to change it. But I will tell you, because again, you brought it up, how good he blocks. I had Alan Lazard written down, just a guy who was willing to, knock that corner on his butt across from him 30 times a game to set up the run game, and then would go and make those catches when you needed him to. But I pivoted to one that I thought was a little bit more sexy. I didn't want anybody to think I was disrespecting Elijah Sarratt, so I went with Michael Pittman Jr., the guy who will be the running mate with DK Metcalf in Pittsburgh. Still don't know who their quarterback is yet, probably Rodgers, but yeah, again, just a big, strong guy. Uses that frame to his advantage, not scared to hit, and his all 11 film, I'm sure, is just impeccable.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep moving down the list. We've got Chris Brazzell II out of Tennessee, 6'5", 200 pounds, 22 years of age.
Massive catch radius right there, right off the rip. That's one of the best things. He's got a massive catch radius. He manipulates the coverages out there. He's going to be shifty out there. He's going to break on them. He's going to get really shifty. He, you know, the way he sinks his hips and his movements and his curls and his cuts is great. He's got a great deep ball tracker as well. So he will get it deeper down the field at 6'5". He will get down the field to be able to catch some deep balls. Let's see. Concentration drops are one of his biggest things where, you know, shorter routes, he was dropping them, you know, easier routes. He just wasn't focused on the ball in his hands. He would just, you know, get drops there. His lateral agility movements are going to need it. He's not going to make a whole lot of people miss down the field going side to side. He'll go through you rather than around you. And he gets a little handy with the press coverages downfield. He will draw some pass interferences on himself as he gets a little handsy with some of the corners down the field.
Yeah, again, very quick that size and he ran a 4.37 official 40-yard time, so very quick for 6'5". That's moving it. Again, a lazy comp would be a Quentin Johnston here. Especially with the drop issues, but I did try to be a little bit more spicy than that. 136 receptions, 2,072 yards receiving, 15.2 yards per catch, and 16 touchdowns. I got DJ Chark, Brant, a guy that every year for a lot of years tricked people into being all in on DJ Chark, just for it not to hit. Not saying that's going to be that way with Chris, but DJ Chark was that guy who had the skill set, had the speed, but wasn't always where he should be in doing things when you thought he would. So again, Chris Brazzell, I worried a little bit because Tennessee wide receivers don't tend to pan out great in the NFL. But again, similarly to everybody we're going to talk about today, there's not a lot of staying power in college anymore. I think Chris only spent 1 year at Tennessee prior to coming from someplace else. So, you know, the body of work isn't as good as it could have been maybe if he was at the University of Tennessee the whole time, but definitely a little leery on Chris at this point. But I'd like to see the catching become a little bit more of a routine practice rather than, you know, just making those great plays and dropping the lazy ones like you talked about.
Yep. Okay. Absolutely. So right next is Zachariah Branch out of Georgia. He's yak ability is crazy. And he finds the creases through traffic. He'll go through the middle. He'll find the creases. He'll catch that ball and he'll turn it into, you know, kind of like an OBJ did for a while where he'd find it on a short little slant. Next thing you know, he's turning a 5-yard catch into 15, 20 yards. He's got great vision like a running back. After he catches it, he's got great vision to find the hole. Reliable hands, very, very reliable hands through traffic. Undersized. You're going to hit that up here in a minute. He's a little undersized, and his routes tend to look a little more rushed and rounded rather than more cut, you know, quick cuts and everything. He seems like he's trying to rush into his breaks and everything. Blocking effort is lacking, but like I said, you'll talk about his size here in a little bit. And obviously the route tree is going to have to be something. He caught 49 of his 81 catches in 2025 were behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, so we're limited here, right? This isn't Devonta Smith coming up size-wise, who had a huge route tree, could make contested catches, had the insane vert to take up for what he lacked in size. Zachariah Branch is only 5'10", 180 pounds, soaking wet. And Brant, you know just as well as I do, those numbers are probably a little skewed because they tend to add pounds for some of these smaller guys. We'll see how that comes out. But 4.35 40, so he does make up for it with the speed. This is kind of where we see the NFL going. It tends to be the faster guys at this point. 159 career receptions, 1,634 yards receiving. Only averaged 10.3 yards per catch, which again is going to play a big factor in his ability because he's catching that ball behind the line of scrimmage. So he's not making those deep balls, and only 9 touchdowns, which again probably comes due to size. But again, that's going to limit you a little bit with your playability from a fantasy standpoint. You're not going to want to put somebody in your lineup that's not putting up numbers better than that. The comp, I feel like he could grow into this comp someday potentially, if he develops really good quick chemistry with his back and ends up being able to be like a deep ball threat for his QB wherever he ends up drafted. But I got DeSean Jackson written down right now. And DeSean at a lot of time in his career took those wide receiver screens and made magic happen. So there are a lot of like in those ways. Obviously the size is similar, but you would like to see Branch develop the deep ball a little bit better in his deep ball tracking. So DeSean Jackson's a comp that I think if he hits his ceiling, that's his ceiling.
Okay. I like that.
All right, let's just keep moving on down the line, chugging like the little train that could. K.C. Conception out of Texas A&M, Brant.
Yeah, I talked about this guy earlier in our preseason rankings and talking about he's got great burst speed that just jumps off the screen. He gets out there and he just breaks it out quick. He's got strong hands, great body control. One of the best things I saw with him is he finds that soft spots in the zones. He's going to get there. He's going to get in that zone. He's going to get in that soft spot and be there when the quarterback needs him. The other thing is he's a return specialist. He was great on kickoff returns and punt returns. So he gives a team another dynamic on another playmaker on that special teams. Weakness, compact build. He's got a very limited catch radius. It's not outrageous. It's not great. He's very inconsistent in his blocking. One play he'll be great, and the next play he's just not even going to try. One of the biggest things that jumped off to me was 19 drops to his 186 catches. So gotta fix that. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but that definitely is a lot when it comes into the NFL.
Mm-hmm. I will say this too, from watching K.C. Conception a little bit last year, specifically against Mizzou, definitely plays bigger than his recorded size. So I think that does make me slightly more excited about him than I would be otherwise. But 5'11", 190 pounds. Again, we're talking about very similar stats to Branch, the previous wide receiver we just talked about. But that 1 inch and 10 pounds do make a difference. 21 years of age for KC. 186 receptions, 2,218 yards receiving, 12 yards per catch, 25 touchdowns. Did run a 4.43 40, so a lower 40 time in the 4.4s. Again, the size is at least on paper somewhat irritating. You wish he was. Granted, he can't help the intangibles, but you wish he was. You wish he was as a size that he plays at, because then we're talking about a guy who could come into the league and be a top 20 wide receiver year one. I don't see that for him initially. And the player that I'm going to compare him to wasn't either, but he's definitely grown to that. That's Wan'Dale Robinson of the New York Giants. Definitely feels like a guy who finds the soft spot, can make guys miss with, again, his IQ, his route tree. And I think K.C. Conception will be a quarterback's best friend, similarly to Wan'Dale.
Yeah. Okay. I would not have thought about that one, but I do like that. I do like that comp.
Let's start getting into the top 5-ish guys that we're going to talk about here. And this is kind of where we get into the heavier hitters, if you will, Brant. First one being Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, 6 foot 395 pounds, 21 years of age.
What was his weight? Did you have?
195.
Okay. All right. I got it down at 192 whenever I saw it. So I'll talk about that here in a minute. He high points the football. We talked about this. These Ohio State guys are phenomenal coming out. And that's one of the things that everything points to with these Ohio State receivers is how well they high point the football and they catch those 50-50 balls. And he's no exception to that. He's really crafty with his route running. He's very shifty. He gets off the line. He gets loose. And he's not afraid to catch the ball in traffic. He's tracks the ball very well in traffic and down the sideline. And another thing is sideline body control. He's working on the 2 feet. You see that more than the 1 foot down there in college with him. let's see. He's got to work on his run blocking. Definitely has to work on his run blocking at a smaller statue. He gets knocked off of his release at 195 pounds is what you had it. And what'd you say? A 4.53 is what he ran at the combine. So once again, he's not the fastest. He's not going to jump off the table with his speed. I know that doesn't sound slow. It actually sounds pretty quick. But as you alluded to, you're starting to see, faster times as we get up into the NFL.
Yeah. And again, I want to preface this by saying neither one of us could run a 4.53. So,
no.
Or maybe from here to the fridge if Mama called snack time. But no disrespect. It's just the league has gotten faster the last several years. So that's kind of not disrespect, but that's kind of why we say what we say. Again, for me, the issue with Tate is the body of work just isn't great. But when you look at his predecessors who were in line before him, obviously wasn't a lot of opportunity for him to scratch into that lineup and get playing time at Ohio State. 121 receptions, 1,872 yards receiving, 15.5 yards per catch, 14 touchdowns. This was one of my favorite comps going into it. I think this one's a very good comp. T. Higgins is who I've got. Again, we're not saying Carnell Tate could be what T. Higgins is. We're saying they have very similar abilities. I hope for Carnell Tate's sake he doesn't go to a landing spot with a Jamar Chase-esque alpha on the roster, but it has worked out just fine in fantasy for T. Higgins. But again, I think we all, even going into what was it last offseason, we're all hopeful that T. Higgins left and went someplace to be the guy because we know he has that ability. I feel very similarly with Carnell Tate as I do with T. Higgins. Very similar skill sets, big body dudes that can high point the ball, like you said, make those athletic catches. I am excited about Carnell Tate and seeing where he goes. He is one of the names that I think we will hear next Thursday.
Yep, absolutely. I do like that. I agree. I do think he'll be a guy that we hear and we talk about on that day one. So the next one we got is Denzel Boston out of Washington. He's willing to block. That's one of the things. He's very willing to block out there on the screen or out there on the screen passes. He's a true X receiver at 6'4" and the long arms that he has. Great deep ball tracker. He's got vice-like hands is one thing that I kept reading on a lot of things that I saw. Vice grip hands. He's not going to let it go, even with the receiver or with the corner or the safety getting a hand in there. He doesn't let it go. He's coming down with the ball. He needs to improve his release again at the line. He needs to get a little more shifty at the line. He's not a true burner. He does track it deep, but he's not going to burn you deep. And he struggled. This is going to be one of the biggest things that we're going to have to see from him. He struggled against some of the top cornerbacks in college there against Ohio State and Oregon. And I'm missing another one that has a couple names that came off. But, I mean, he struggled against those top ones. So he's going to have to prove that he can show up in the big games.
Yeah, this is the one guy, Brant, that breaks the rule with this draft class. He has been at the University of Washington his entire collegiate career. Sat and waited his time back there in the Penix, even the Penix days, as old as Penix is, and just waited for his opportunity, and it's kind of paid off for him. He is, like you said, 6'4", 209 pounds, 22 years of age, big-bodied frame. Unfortunately, he did not run in the combine or the pro day for time due to the advice of his agent. And again, he's in that spot where he's probably not going to gain anything by running his 40s, fast, but he would have lost it if it came out in like the 4.6s. So there's a lot of people saying it's either 4.55 or 4.62 if it were to be timed. So that is a little alarming, but again, he makes up for that with his size and what he's willing to do. Not even remotely trying to be offensive to one of the legends of our time, but Larry Fitzgerald didn't run the world's fastest 40 time either and was just fine for a long time in the NFL. He did catch 132 balls, 1,781 yards, receiving 13.5 yards per catch to go along with 20 touchdowns. Reminds me a lot of Courtland Sutton. A lot of like Courtland Sutton. Could have 4 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown any given Sunday probably, and you're just going to be as happy as can be about that. There's going to be other weeks where you start him and probably don't end up getting a whole lot out of him. But he just reminds me of somebody who's that big, physical, strong, contested catch. It's 3rd and 6. We need a first down in crucial time. He's the guy we're looking to. I think for him to be super successful and pass that Courtland Sutton, ceiling, he's going to need to go to a place where he has really high volume. So again, that'll be determined next Thursday. I believe this is another name we'll see drafted day 1, Brant.
Okay. Yep.
All right, next we'll go to the guy I talked about when you and I did our way too early dynasty or rookie prospects. Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State, 6'2", 200 pounds, 21 years of age.
Great route runner. He might be one of the best route runners in this class overall. Great route runner. Tracks the deep ball. He has no problem getting out there and running, blocking. They can move him all over the formation. You can move him in motion. You can get him open out of the backfield. This guy has no problem going anywhere you ask him to go. One of his biggest weaknesses is something that is very hard to control, and that's his medical. He was out with a knee in 2022. He missed time. He missed time in 24 for his collarbone, and he's got a hamstring injury that's lingering right now. I do believe he did not run at his pro day with that lingering injury, and they clocked him at a guesstimate of a 4.5 40. So he's got a decent speed. It's not the greatest. He's not going to jump off the table with it, but this is, like I said, I think his route running is going to be one thing to keep an eye on for this guy in his career.
Yeah, if health was put aside, he would be my number 1 wide receiver in this class if we were talking about rankings. Like you alluded to, he didn't run the 40 this year because of his hamstring. 158 receptions in college, 2,282 receiving yards. 14.4 is the average per catch, 22 touchdowns. Again, love the comp. Not what the player has become, but who the player once was. Calvin Ridley, just the ultimate route runner. Calvin Ridley had one of the best route trees in college or in the NFL. His first couple years in Atlanta was just impossible to cover. I think Jordan Tyson's going to be the same way. When he's on the field, he's going to be awesome. I do think his injuries will be frustrating to a lot of people. But again, another name we will hear called for sure next Thursday. Definitely be interesting to see where he lands, Brant, because this is probably my favorite wide receiver, like I alluded to.
Absolutely. We got next up is Omar Cooper Jr. out of the University of Indiana. One of the biggest things with him is he catches the ball away from his body. He's not bringing it in. He's not catching it with his chest. He's going out and he's high pointing it, and he's reliable to catch it and bring it to his body. Very reliable hands in traffic. He loves to find the soft spots in that zone defense. He's almost impossible to cover in zone, as he will find those. He's very speedy receiver, getting out of his breaks and getting to those soft spots. He needs to polish his route tree, as there were times where he would just almost would just go to the soft spot, not even really run a route or run a break or anything else. He would just find that soft spot. Limited sample as the top target there in Indiana. And he relies more on his athleticism rather than his skill to win against tight coverages. You've got to clean that up and be able to have some skill and some training in order to get separation there against those corners in tight coverages.
Yeah, 6'1" or 6 foot, 201 pounds, 4'4", 240. So neither size nor speed really jump off the 4'4", 240 is pretty darn good. Only 115 receptions in college, 1798 for his yards, 15.6 yards per catch, 22 touchdowns. This screams Pittsburgh Steelers, JuJu Smith-Schuster to me. Obviously, I will preface that because JuJu fell off extremely hard after he left there. But JuJu Smith in Pittsburgh just feels like a great comparable here. I do again think that Omar is going to need to develop a little bit more where he goes. This is one of the players that I'm going to be slightly more patient on out of this class, and maybe not week 1 of next year starting him in my fantasy lineup, because that matters obviously to his development. But I think the expectations will be low early. I think this is a player that year 2 in the NFL we could see a huge explosion, or even year 3.
Okay.
All right, last but certainly not least, Brant, we got Makai Lemon out of USC, 5'11", 195 pounds, 21 years of age.
plays so much bigger than 5'11". He's out jumping some of these corners at 6'1", 6'2". He's going to win the jump ball out there. Determination there just to win it is phenomenal. He's got great hands. He only had 3 drops over 175 targets. I think it was in 2 years. He's trusted in the traffic. He finds that open spot in the traffic to get open. He's got great cuts and great breaks. Like I said, he wins the jump ball. He's a very good blocker at only 5'11". Weakness is unfortunately how big he does play. Some of his weakness is his size. Press corners will challenge him at times in the NFL with all that. And he's got a smaller catch radius than some of these other big body guys we're talking about. But really his weaknesses aren't the worst thing possible. You just got to, kind of tone it with his quarterback and get that chemistry going.
Yeah. Again, did not run at the combine, but did run on his pro day, 4.46. So not blinding speed necessarily. 137 receptions, 2,008 yards, receiving 14.7 yards per 14 touchdowns. The comp is probably my weakest one of all of them, Brant. So I'll let you pick this one apart potentially. But I got Zay Flowers as his NFL comp. Definitely a little bit more athletic, I think, than Zay, potentially as far as willing to go up and make contested catches. Zay's probably a little faster. But that's who I came up with. Very similar size-wise.
Yeah, I could definitely see that where he finds that gap and he turns it in, or he's tracking you deep balls. He's going to turn some catches into, 5-yard catches into, the first downs. I definitely can see where that comp does come. I do like that a little bit. So yeah, this is a guy that we're definitely, I think, going to hear his name on Thursday.
Yep, for sure. Which does bring me to the next point. Again, guys, next Wednesday, there will be no Fatboyz episode. Brant and I will be saving our cameras, our faces, our energy and everything else for Thursday night next week. So be prepared for that. Thursday, Brant's got some prior engagements before the NFL draft. Not for sure what time he'll be joining us, but I will be on probably 15 minutes before the first pick's announced. I'll probably be on like 15 minutes before the first pick is even able to be on the clock. Just to get in there and hang out and talk about some, prop bets potentially for the draft, things of that nature. And then as Brant becomes available, he'll join in, potentially have some of the blood, sweat, tears guys join in with us as well. You never know who will pop on and hang out with the Fatboyz for a little while. But Brant and I will be with you for live coverage next Thursday. So if that's something you're interested in, come hang out, come chat with us. We'll talk prospects. We'll talk what we think about the picks. You'll see live reactions, everything from A to Z next week if you want to come hang out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always been a fun time. I think we've done it the last 2 years. It's always a great time to be live at the draft and interact with you guys and talk about, even some of the linemen that may impact some of your fantasy values and how some of the defensive players can bolster a defense and everything else. It's always a good time. It's a long night, but it always makes it a little more interesting interacting with you guys and having a little more fun. So be sure to join in with us on Thursday for the draft. As you alluded to, I will be joining you as soon as I get home. I'll have everything set up. I still may be a little tired, but I'll have everything ready to go. And as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.